Yeah, so I will do a quick lightning talk here on exploring robotic manipulation datasets in FiftyOne. And so let's check it out. It's a great segue from Steve's awesome talk, which with really complex synthetic data. Let me start with actually, I have two data sets, but I'm actually not sure I'll be able to talk about both of them. So let me start with the newer one, which, like I said, actually segues pretty well from Steve's talk. This is a DROID, which was released last year, which was a new data set released for robotic manipulation. And in manufacturing, a lot of times some tasks you can just have a perception model and then have kind of classical techniques and that'll get you there. But for especially as Steve described, for complex actions where there's uncertainty, variable friction and assembly of devices, pick and place in complex scenarios, you do need to have learned policies, right? And the purpose of this data set was to broaden the diversity, in this case, of real world data relative to all the previous benchmark data sets. So kind of in the long, history of CV, right, and machine learning, expanding the diversity of your data gets you better results. And they talk about how the trained policies end up being very improved, in domain and out of domain when they're able to have this diverse data. So this data set collects data from all around the world for a variety of tasks. And it's really interesting. They have a standardized rig here. This is kind of how part of why they achieved such good diversity was they had a standardized rig that was used across the world in many different labs by many different users. And so this is the rig. It has two kind of stereo cameras at a wider view, and then also a camera directly on the actuator. So very cool. And then a standardized acquisition setup. And the tasks were like, there were some prompts for the tasks, but then operators could also choose their own tasks. So, can't remember exactly how many labs, but many, many users all around the world. And you can imagine that gives you a lot of diversity of data. And, they talk about the diversity of different settings and, industrial office, kitchen, and so on. And then also in terms of like the nouns and verbs, if you will, what's being manipulated, what the manipulation is. And it's a super long tail, much longer than the prior data sets. So something really funny that is we love to see at Voxel is they actually, as part of the project page, had a visualizer, so you can see actually sampling from the corpus, the entire corpus of data, and you're actually able to filter it, which is very cool. You can choose your setting, maybe choose your object, and this is kind of very much in the vein of what FiftyOne can do. But what my thought here is if you're working with this type of data, FiftyOne can give this to you kind of out of the box with just a couple lines of code and give you this kind of view. So that's what I wanted to try out and play with this data set in FiftyOne. So let's take a look at that. So I did load this up, and it's again would be very easy for you to do this yourself with open source FiftyOne. Just pip install FiftyOne. And there's, as I mentioned, there's three cameras, right? There's the kind of two broader views, and in FiftyOne you can create what's called a group data set for having multi-channel views. So this is kind of that broader view. That's kind of from one of the wider view cameras. But then you might also have the zoomed in view. So this is the wrist actuator camera where you're able to see up close and personal what happens with your picks and your tasks. Now I did also form a concatenated view, so this is nice where I can see all of the views at the same time, right? So you have the wider angle view and the actuator. And I've got all the metadata. Now, this doesn't capture the data set is quite extensive. So it has trajectories and all sorts of data for training policies. I captured some of the kind of basic metadata here. So, the lab, the task, the user, for instance. And in FiftyOne, it's very easy. You can see here, if I open up this, I can immediately see here, if I want to filter down for just data from a particular lab, I can click TRI and get those trajectories and sequences. I've also got the task here. So you can see the prompt for the task. In this case, it's put the marker in the pot. So this one is successful, which is great. But a whole variety of different tasks. And they actually had the prompt and also a post labeling process in which they annotate the actual task. Okay, that's great. What else is there? Well, something fun here is the success. So they did let the operators choose whether the action was successful, right? And obviously, we don't want to dwell on failures, but it's always fun to see when things don't go right. So if I click on failures here, false, then I can see where things go wrong. And so the prompt here is to move the object into this bowl, and you can see the mispick here of this green cube. And so that indeed is a failure case. Let's find another one. There was another interesting one here with the bowl. This one was kind of fun here. Oh yes, this one knocked over the cup instead of moving the object out. And this one, actually another one where it completely missed its target. So easily able to find the failure modes. And of course, understanding your failure cases right is what informs improving your model the next time around. Here's the setting metadata. An interesting thing here, this was not actually captured at acquisition. They actually captured this and a variety of other metadata using GPT. So that's kind of a fun use case that you can actually manage and perform within FiftyOne. Here's their prompt for capturing the setting, okay, enriching the metadata of their data set. So typical kind of multi-way prompt. Let's give this a try. So, obviously, this is all over the world now in many different areas and domains. Let me choose a particular scene here. I'll reset this and turn on my settings so you can see the different settings. And this was how I, populated this. But with this flow, you could experiment with different prompts, try different things. I extracted object lists as well. Let's try out our prompt here for classifying the setting. So home office, industrial kitchen, and so on. So you can run your own LLM or reach out to one of the many services these days, right? And so this actually called out with this trajectory sequence, it sampled it and then said, hey, which one of these categories is it? And it is the kitchen. So good job on that one. And so that's how I populated that setting. That's how they did it in the paper as well. In addition to the setting, I think I've got one where I extracted objects. So here's the wrist. Let me try to clear some of this stuff out. All right, let me clear. So I did similarly extract objects of interest. In the paper, they talk about the kind of noun and verb diversity. So I extracted, for example, in the wrist view, right? Let's say we're interested in particular types of objects that are being actuated or picked up. I can open this guy up. This was, again, acquired using our VLM and prompting the model with a random sampling from the trajectory. So that one, it didn't pick up a marker, but there is a marker in the field of view that you can see there. So again, a way to kind of enrich your metadata, understanding the context and items in your task. Last thing I'll point out here in FiftyOne, talking about object diversity, let's see it. It's actually a very simple point and click operation to generate different histograms, plots. These can be pretty much anything you can dream up, any form of plot that you like, you know what I mean? Whether it's trees, heat maps, histograms of various flavors. Very easy to see the diversity of your data set and the distribution. So successes, failures, object types. Like I said, we actually didn't, I didn't have time to investigate all the trajectory information, but that's available here. Apparently one of these is quite long running. It's kind of a fun action here. This one, the prompt, I believe, is to sort the tableware here, and this robot is very hesitant in trying to figure out this it is a very complicated set of tableware there, so figuring that out. So again, they show, trading policies with this ended up with much better and improved policies. So I think as a next step, I think I could do that, and FiftyOne does have great 3D support, and so I could actually incorporate that as well. I did upload this data set into a public deployment. I'll post the link in the chat if you guys want to play with this. Just a kind of fun exploration, kind of see what it's about, what FiftyOne's about. If you, like I said, if you have data that's like this, it's like 2 lines of code to get it in, and then you can have this type of view and browsing and filtering on your data. So let me see. I think that, yep, I'm out of time. So thanks. I'll post the links. I was going to talk about the data set as well, but I'll post links. I won't hog too much time here. I'll post that in the chat as well. And thank you for your time.